Slashers. Everyone already knows what they are by this point, and at least for my generation and the one before mine, they've always been around. But what I'm curious about is what led to the invention of the slasher genre, how it got its start, its many rises and falls, and how we got to where we are today. So join me as we take a deep dive into the history of the most popular and beloved horror genre there is. Slashers. Hey, I'm Hound, and I don't really like slasher movies. They're sleazy, which means they're overly reliant on their gore and nudity in order to carry the film. They're basic. The predictable outline that comes with slasher films often leaves little in the way of an engaging watch. And there's just so many of them. You can't really throw a stone without hitting at least a few slasher films. And if you've seen one, you've basically seen them all. So then, why am I doing this? Good question. Slashers are, by and far, the most popular subgenre of horror films, as people who aren't even self-proclaimed horror fans, or movie fans sometimes, still like slasher films, or at the very least, know of them. Many slasher giants double as pop icons themselves. If I showed a non-horror fan an image of a famous slasher villain, they most likely would be able to tell me who it is. The ability for most people to identify individual slasher villains is a testament to the popularity of slashers eclipsing their movies, and becoming staples as both horror and film icons. But how did we get to this point? Now it's time for my favorite part of these videos, arguing semantics. Here we will be trying to pin down what truly makes a slasher film a slasher and sets it apart from the ever-growing and adapting list of horror subgenres. These are very important things to understand because a lot of films tend to get called a slasher when they're either on the fence of the classification or are very off the deep end. Commonly associated films like Blood Feast, which is literally cited as birthing the splatter genre of exploitation films. When a Stranger Calls, that's just a thriller. Last House on the Left, an extremely gory revenge film that possibly created the rape-revenge subgenre. The Hills Have Eyes. Post-nuclear cannibal hillbilly splatter? There's just too much going on here. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Put down the pitchforks. While Leatherface is commonly pictured beside, and does indeed fit next to his slasher brethren, I've never felt like the film, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, could really be called a slasher film. This one is definitely on the fence, even with my subjective classification system. It's a horror thriller that, if we were to put it into a subgenre, would probably be exploitation or cannibal or hillbilly horror. But personally, I feel like this film goes above being niched down into a subgenre. Another film that I saw pop up quite a few times as a slasher is Alien. Dog, that's a sci-fi horror thriller creature feature. Are you okay? So now you're probably wondering, what would fall under the title of a slasher film? Well, after many sleepless nights toiling over this, I think I can finally break down the core necessities for a slasher classification into two fields, the primaries and the secondaries. First off, the primaries. Number 1. Slasher films must feature a masked or hidden killer that slashes, but most importantly stalks their victims, and is usually a single killer working alone. This, almost by itself, is the core tenet of slashers that set it apart from other horror films. Number 2. They have to have a large body count. At this stage, it doesn't really matter if they're college students or blue-collar workers. It just needs to have a sizable number of kills. Number 3, and who could forget? As the audience, we must follow the survivor of the story. Whether the survivor faces off against or ends the killer's reign isn't important. We need a protagonist to follow who we can both root for and experience the film's horror through. These are the most important things that a slasher needs in order to be called a slasher, in my opinion. Feel free to disagree with me. I could be a little lenient with one of these three and understand where someone is coming from calling a certain film a slasher when I personally wouldn't necessarily go that far. But these are just the primaries. We really begin to hammer home what the most popular iterations of a slasher film looks like when we go into the secondaries. 1. The killer has a tragic backstory, usually creating psychological trauma themes involving either bullying or death of a loved one, or even death of the killer themselves. Number 2. The slasher villain uses primarily bladed or blunt weapons. They can use power tools and fire, but the use of guns is almost prohibited, as viewers want to see the slasher's violence and the character's anguish displayed on screen. Number 3. The fodder characters are usually teenaged high school or college kids. If I had to think of a reason, it would be the combining factors that teens were their target demographic, while the films also acted as cautionary tales against teenage debauchery. Speaking of, Number 4. The films would have a running theme that the characters chosen for death would all be engaging in extracurricular activities that adults of the time would deem just not right, like drugs, alcohol, counterculture, and that gosh darn premarital hand-holding. Meanwhile, the survivor archetype would not partake in these death sentences. Number 5, and last but not least, the location would either be isolating or the situation would be, whether that be characters stranded in the woods or characters who won't be believed by the authority figures in their lives. That pretty much sums it up. Primaries equal the slasher foundation, and primaries plus secondaries equal the bona fide slasher framework. While we're on the topic of semantics, let's talk a bit about conventions and cliches. What we just discussed could be considered conventions of the slasher genre and not cliches. For example, during a chase scene, the killer is seemingly always 2 steps behind the sprinting victim, despite walking at a leisurely pace. This is a convention or a trope of the genre. Meanwhile, the victim tripping over a branch, or even nothing in some cases, is a cliche. Conventions are good. Cliches are bad. Alright, now that we have a solid understanding of my subjective classification system for slasher films, let's go back through the catalogs of film history and see what we can find. I don't think people are actually interested in finding the first true, real slasher film. The further we go back, the more distant it feels to what we now would call a slasher. And they rarely include all of the tropes that we associate with them. What would you be lenient on in order to claim something else as the first slasher? Nevertheless, it's still an interesting conversation to have. Slashers weren't just thought up one day. The genre was built using bits and pieces that can be seen in films that came before it. If we go back to the 20s and 30s, we can see examples of masked killers stalking their victims, like in The Bat in 1926. And we even see an example of a mysterious killer offing the cast one by one in 1932's 13 Women, that adapted an Agatha Christie style "and then there were none" story to their murder mystery horror film. But the majority of slasher aficionados like to cite 2 films released in 1960 as the genesis for what would become the slasher format. Psycho, directed by Alfred Hitchcock, was a landmark event in horror, especially in America. Having one of the most overt instances of a murder occurring on screen at the time, leading to controversy that would inadvertently increase the movie-going population's interest in seeing the film. I'm sure that's a one-time thing that won't be happening again anytime soon. The thing is, Psycho, despite having a sort of mysterious killer that kinda stalks their victims, the body count is laughable by modern standards. And I mean modern as in 10 to 15 years after this film's release. On the flip side is Michael Powell's cult classic, Peeping Tom, being released 5 months before Psycho and, in my opinion, is the better of the 2 films. Do not fight me on this, I will win. Peeping Tom dealt with one of my favorite meta-topics in horror films, that would later be adopted for a lot of found footage films as well. And that is the topic of the role we as viewers play in the horrible acts that we came to see. This film isn't a slasher either. It has a body count, introduced the killer POV to the world in an ingenious way, and has the secondary tenet of a tragic backstory for the killer. Despite these being present, it wouldn't be called a slasher under my classifications, as it doesn't have a mysterious killer, and we don't really have a survivor character protagonist. Peeping Tom would be released in Britain to immediate backlash, and unlike how that turned out for Hitchcock in America, it very sadly ended the career of the director, Michael Powell. So please, if you haven't seen this film, go give it a watch. A bit later in 1963, we got a film called The Girl Who Knew Too Much, from Italian filmmaking legend Mario Bava, featuring John Saxon, who we will be seeing a good bit more of. This would unleash a new genre of film, the giallo, getting their name from their chief influence, popular Italian crime mystery novels that were in themselves adaptations of great writers' works, such as Agatha Christie, Edgar Allan Poe, and interestingly enough, Edgar Wallace, a British author who would go on to write screenplays in America and then had the rights of his work posthumously sold to Germany of all places, as they started producing several adaptations that would be referred to as crimi films. Films like Face of the Frog and Creature with a Blue Hand, featuring masked killers, a murder mystery, and lots of sexuality and violence. If the titles of those two movies weren't enough of a clue, crimi films would serve as a huge inspiration for the emerging genre of giallo, coming out of Italy in the 60s and 70s. Dario Argento, a famous contributor to the giallo genre, would have entries such as The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, Deep Red, and Suspiria, that would, alongside Argento's patented awesome-ass musical scores, all have similar themes running through them. A hidden killer, stalking, murder mystery, and even one-by-one deaths. No doubt the bigger slasher influence are the works of Mario Bava, films like Blood and Black Lace from 1964, featuring an iconic-as-hell killer costume, a murder mystery at hand, and beautiful, beautiful camera work. Like, my god, guy, just chill the fuck out for fucking once. You're making us all look bad. Damn! Another of his films would become directly influential to slasher films that were just around the corner. In 1971, he would release A Bay of Blood, or Twitch of the Death Nerve, whatever you want to call it. This film would feature an almost giddy depiction of several gruesome deaths, abiding by the one-by-one rule, as well as multiple stalking mystery killers. But there's one other little giallo film that often gets left out of discussions, as its director isn't as prolific for American audiences as Bava or Argento. Sergio Martino, by this point no stranger to the world of giallo with films like All the Colors of the Dark and the aptly named Your Vice is a Locked Room and Only I Have the Key. In 1973, he would release a little film called Torso. That can't be right. Hold on. Okay. Its Italian name translated is The Bodies Bear Traces of Carnal Violence. Okay. All is right with the world again. So what did Torso have? A hidden killer using mostly bladed instruments with a tragic backstory. Okay. A decent-sized body count comprised of college-age kids that would be deemed immoral. Alright. A final girl who faces off against the killer. And it all happens in an isolated mansion. Hey, wait, what the fuck? Yeah, you heard that right. This film features not only the primary tenants, but also all of the secondary tenants in one way or another, making this quite possibly the first slasher film. And I'm saddened by the fact that, despite this, it feels wrong to call it the first slasher. There's just something missing from it. It doesn't feel right. Like we're still grasping at straws to call it a slasher for the sake of calling it a slasher. We'll touch on this a bit later, don't worry. But for now, go watch Torso. It's actually a pretty decent film when you aren't actively comparing it to the technical mastery present in its peers, like Suspiria or Blood and Black Lace. Meanwhile, in America, in 1974, we got a film called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that while we already discussed isn't completely a slasher, would definitely cause ripples that would be seen down the line. It's noted as one of the goriest films ever made, yet it has very little gore. And that's because of its verite sense of cinematography, that grounds us in reality, making the violence depicted therein much more visceral. The hulking menace that is Gunnar Hansen's Leatherface would lay down the framework for the silent slasher villains of the early to mid-80s. Whether you view it as a critique of the American government, military, or how we treat livestock animals, one thing is persistent. The Sawyer family views their victims as one thing, and one thing only. Just another bag of meat for the grinder. To me, this film transcends being called just a slasher film. That same year, barely 2 weeks later, we got one of my favorite proto-slashers, Black Christmas. Hi, John. The film would include and popularize for the American audience a lot of the staples of giallo horror, as well as influences from Michael Powell's Peeping Tom. Murder mystery with a hidden culprit, the killer strikes one by one, beautiful usage of handheld camera shots that put us in the killer's shoes, sorority house victims that partake in the devil's lettuce or whatever, a survivor archetype, gruesome kills, and a large body count. This film is a must-watch every year for a reason. It just puts you in the holly jolly mood. In 1976, we would get The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Based on a real-life case, it would follow a small town as they are afflicted by a serial killer. The killer in the film dons a bag over his head and targets mostly high school-aged kids, but doesn't limit himself to stabby weapons. It's more of a crime mystery than a full-fledged horror film, and we follow the cops as they attempt to decipher who the killer is. So now what? You know it, and I know it. So let's cut to the chase. Yeah, well, doing the research for this film, I felt like that meme. I used to be that guy. I used to be the one that was saying Peeping Tom was actually the first slasher film. And then when I was doing the research for this video, it honestly felt like Torso would take the cake. But it was missing something. It felt wrong. It was missing something that, looking at the breadth of slashers, especially early slashers, felt almost necessary. Slashers are, at the end of the day, inherently American. The political landscape of America at the time played a heavy part in the inevitability and the rise of the slasher film. Post-Vietnam War, Watergate, civil rights and women's rights movements, Manson family, Satanic Panic. Ever since the Red Scare, the American public was no stranger to the notion that the enemy was already among them, and that it could be anybody. And these political tensions were not helping things. Then you combine that with the fact that broadcasted news had become commonplace, going on to show the horrors of the Vietnam War, as well as assassinations, and any violence they think will get eyes on the program, to every set in every home in America, alongside the rise of instances of serial killers and the obvious media frenzy that followed them. Needless to say, the general public were in a state of fear when it came to their homes and their children, of something or someone, an act of chaos, invading their presumed to be safe spaces. No one is safe, and anybody could be the killer. All right, say it with me now. Halloween. Halloween was a naturally occurring response to those fears. It's about a force of nature, with no rhyme or reason, existing and killing in small-town middle-class America. And it would go on to solidify what a slasher film is as its ethos and as its blueprint. The survivor archetype, intentional or not morality play spurred on by conservative values in America, mass stoic killers stalking their victims, and a sizable body count to boot. Halloween is iconic for a reason. It's very well made, even despite being rushed, a testament to the craftsmanship of John Carpenter and his collaborators, and it's kind of poetic that, in my opinion, Halloween sits at the top of pure slashers as the best incarnation. It's totally a fun film.
Totally.
Halloween, on a budget of $300,000, grossed 70 million US dollarinos. And that's in 1978 monies too. Afterwards, a few films popped up that could be classified as slashers. Tourist Trap, Silent Scream, and most notably Driller Killer, for being one of the films involved in the video nasty thingy that was going on over in Britain in the early 80s. Laughs in American, but much like we saw with Found Footage and Blair Witch, a lot of people were just waiting for that second strike of lightning, before they went all in on the slasher craze. Before we talk about this next one, I want to take a moment to step back a bit and talk about splatter and exploitation films, their popularity, and an emerging form of media in the late 70s. Drive-in theaters reached their peak in the 50s, serving as a popular pastime for parents who could take their kids along with them to see a movie, but most importantly, it was popular for high school kids, who were afforded privacy and freedom, making drive-ins a place for typical teenage hooligan shenanigans like drinking beer, smoking some marijuanas, and who could forget hand-holding. When the drive-in sadly started its decline in the late 60s after homes started having more television sets, drive-ins needed a new way to get butts in seats. Or I guess, butts in cars and parked in front of their screen. After years of being under the thumb of the Hays Code, the general audience was yearning for something. Something they couldn't quite get at home on their TVs. Enter the heavenly combo, that I'm sure had no long-lasting effects on anyone's psyche. Blood and butts. Drive-ins started showing more and more exploitation films, leading to a rise in the popularity of the recent splatter subgenre. Splatter films were aimed at the midnight showing crowd, with a narrowed focus on delivering vivid imagery adorned with lots of colorful blood and violence, usually accompanied by scantily clad or nude women. At the forefront is Herschel Gordon Lewis with his pioneering film Blood Feast, but also other films of his becoming popular as well, like 2000 Maniacs and The Wizard of Gore. Big films from the time that would be associated with the genre were Cannibal Holocaust, Maniac, Last House on the Left, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Now, I swear that tangent was important, because our next big milestone in the history of slashers is none other than Friday the 13th, which would take the primary's foundation established by Halloween and combine it with heavy inspiration from exploitation films. Where Halloween showed its violence artfully and nudity with class, Friday the 13th said, fuck that shit. Pabst Blue Ribbon! While Halloween laid out the blueprints of a slasher film, I personally feel like Friday the 13th's twists and turns of the non-fundamental elements cemented what would become the de facto slasher framework. While we had the primaries, obscured killers stalking their victims, a high body count, and a survivor, Friday the 13th introduced us to the secondaries, tragic backstory, various weapons but never firearms, group of teenagers, hammering home the morals that were somewhat on display with Halloween, and of course, the iconic setting of a campground isolated deep in the woods. And while the first installment of this soon-to-be franchise had the twist reveal of a killer Mrs. Voorhees, every film after this would focus on her boy, Jason, who would become as big or bigger than Michael Myers as the icon of slashers. He's got an interesting yet simple design, he's large, he's silent, and his hands are rated E for everyone. But we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Now, Friday the 13th had nearly double the budget of Halloween, sitting at $550,000, and didn't reach the $70 million return, getting pretty close with estimates of about $60 million. But that was more than enough to signal that this was indeed the second strike of lightning. Again, much like we discussed with found footage, slasher films are easy to film, cheap to shoot, and practically sell themselves to an audience that's looking for little more than violence and sex. So what do? We turn the money printer on until it runs out of ink. This would create what most people would call the golden age of slashers. It's about 1981 to 1982, or 1978 to 1984, depending on who you ask. Yeah, it's a short period, admittedly, but boy did it have girth to it. I couldn't find any comprehensive lists, but estimates of between 50 and 100 slashers in this period can give you a glimpse of just how saturated the genre was becoming already. The 80s rise of slashers was essentially throw everything at the wall, see what sticks, and make a sequel as soon as possible to capitalize on it. The golden age of slashers was no doubt boosted by the concurrently growing interest in VHS and home video, something that was always in the backs of minds of filmmakers since the beginning, but was largely impractical as well as unaffordable, until the invention of the VHS in 1976, just in time for slashers. A lot of the slasher films from this era were just a killer title that may or may not be based on a holiday, and a striking image on the cover with an OG clickbait tagline in the hopes to grab the eye of the audience that were perusing the video rental store. If films weren't making their money back in theaters, these video rental sales gave them a second chance, and some slashers would skip theaters altogether, going straight on the shelves, whether to save money or just to not have to cut out blood or nudity for the MPAA approval, in a time when home videos were much less regulated. The drive-in was waning, but at the next exit was a new enterprise of stores that were beginning to start popping up everywhere, where you can walk in and grab any movie that fancies you, and walk out with it for a couple of dollars. During this time, kids would be mostly left alone to their own devices, and would have the opportunity to view these gore-filled horror films. It's funny to look back on this, and the public outcry over it now, because nowadays any kid with a smartphone can just go to a copycat site and see much worse. If you can't tell, I love VHS, and I especially love what it cultivated in the horror genre. When I think of the golden age of slashers and horror in general, it's synonymous with the popularization of home video and rental stores for me. But back to slashers. The successful slashers of the early 80s kept the core fundamentals on tight lock, but experimented with different elements of the story. The way these films tried to stick out initially were by upping the violence and gore, taking more and more from splatter and exploitation films. Films that I like from this branch are Maniac and the Prowler. Maniac is sort of maybe a slasher, but I like talking about it, whatever. Maniac is more thoughtful with its approach, but Prowler is just straight up pure concentrated slasher fun. When you are so frequently combining female nudity and bloody death, you can't help but draw the ire of women's rights activists, who call into question the necessity of said violence. No doubt this was worsened by the fact that a lot of films would really pay attention to women's deaths over that of their male co-stars, a phenomenon that was parodied in The Awesome Student Bodies, wherein the killer, the breather, would kill women with a blunt or sharp object, but male characters were killed by smothering them with a black trash bag off-screen. Give this film a watch. It's a hoot. Another controversial aspect of the slasher craze was that the female victims of the killer were typically depicted as free-thinking, rebellious, sex-positive, and generally outgoing, which would make them prime targets for the slasher villain that is representative of conservative values at the time, where the virginal goody two-shoes would be spared by the end of the film for not engaging in liberal, again, free-thinking counterculture activities. But that is a very broad stroke there. Another interpretation, also held by feminists of both the 80s and the present, is that slashers were actually empowering, showing women standing up against the conservative patriarchal figure that was the slasher villain. That the final girl wasn't final because she abstained from premarital sex and drugs and alcohol, it's that those activities just happened to put her friends in vulnerable states. This reading is backed up in most cases by the fact that regardless of what the final girl does in the film, the villain is still trying to kill her. I think there's a solid case to be made for both sides, and at the end of the day, it's really always up to the viewer's interpretation. If a film makes one woman feel objectified and demeaned, and another woman empowered and supported, then that's just how they feel. You can't take that away from someone. However, I can't help but remember a similar argument about including depictions of rape and other violence towards women in movies. It took me a while to come around to this conclusion, but essentially it boils down to this. If the film indeed is meant to be pro-women, or at the very least, not anti-women, why does it seem so excited to show us non-stop abuse of them? I hate it, but growing up is realizing that Roger Ebert wasn't wrong.
A lot of people have the wrong idea. They identify these films with earlier thrillers like Psycho, or even a more recent film like Halloween, which we both like. These films aren't in the same category. These films hate women.
So, what does a feminist slasher film look like? Slumber Party Massacre. Initially written as a parody of slashers by a presumably anti-slasher feminist, or at the very least someone who was heavily criticizing the genre's conventions, it was reworked into a bona fide slasher for the screen and directed by a pro-slasher feminist who saw the empowerment of women through those same conventions. While being extremely heavy-handed, it retained a good bit of the intended comedy throughout, making this film a very fun watch. Besides just turning the nudity and blood dials up to 11, there was another way that slasher films were trying to be unique at the time. Inspired by the final twist of Friday the 13th, slashers, following in its footsteps, would feature a twist of their own. One such film was Sleepaway Camp, released in 1983. A very stern copy of the Friday the 13th format, except this time kids are actually at the summer camp. It's weird how rare that is, but most notably the film would feature a shocking twist ending that took a movie that had a couple good things going for it, mainly the comedy and some decent kills.
Eat shit and live, Bill.
And skyrocketed it into infamy or fame. It's controversial. After the extreme success of Friday the 13th led to clone after clone to be pushed out as fast as possible in order to capitalize on the hype it generated, it took less than 3 years for the general public's favor to shift away from slashers. Real quick, I'd like to check in on where the franchises are right now. Michael's gone in favor of an Irishman with robot henchmen plotting to take over the world with microchipped Halloween masks. And Friday the 13th just killed Jason. Cool. The problem is, slashers during this period rarely tried to be creative outside of who was doing the killing, on what holiday, and how much blood and butts they could fit in. They stuck a little too close to the foundations, leading to a genre that almost overnight became oversaturated and bottom-of-the-barrel filth that even connoisseurs of such media would say was too much too fast. Burnout. We speed ran Burnout, guys, and slashers shot themselves in the foot. The public didn't really care for the genre anymore, as it felt like it had all been explored before already. That is, until Nightmare on Elm Street would release in 1984, and breathes some much-needed life into an already dying genre. Literally. The new life is Freddy. Before this film, slasher villains were much like their predecessor in Leatherface, and took notes from Jason in Friday the 13th. They were mostly silent, hulking brutes of a unit that just mogged everyone on screen. Freddy, however, is not a brute, and for fucking damn sure is not silent. Introduced alongside the charismatic charm of Freddy is the fact that he's a supernatural villain, through and through, attacking people via their dreams, a place where no one can save you. Also, usually slasher villains are non-sexual. However, Freddy is. This edition of a villain that breaks the mold that was moments from being set in stone was so important for the continued life of the genre, showing that villains didn't have to be bland. They could have personalities, and be fun, and most of all, they could be funny. Also, hi again, John. Nightmare on Elm Street exemplifies something that had already kind of just happened in the background. Successful slasher films had great villains. Successful slasher films had sequels. This franchising led to the protagonization of these antagonists, meaning by this point in the life of slashers, the audience was already watching for the villain. Nothing demonstrates this better than if I show you 3 survivors from slasher franchises and their respective killers. Now tell me their names. Admit it, you at least had to think about it. This is, of course, a very minor problem with slashers. It just means that we know the killer won't really die at the end, and so we go into the film with more metered expectations. The film has to work harder to get us to care for our survivor archetype, usually resulting in severely unlikable supporting cast. And besides, we're really there to see Homeboy get some good kills in, and then watch him dutifully fall to the survivor, crossed us off to a happy ending, and then a stinger that gets us amped up for the next installment, where we do it all over again. Towards the end of the 80s, despite the revival from Nightmare on Elm Street, interest in slashers was already waning again. Through all of these iterations on the slasher subgenre, we would also see the big players building entry after entry until they became full-on franchises, soon bringing about the end of the slasher craze. The oversaturation, controversies over depiction of violence, especially towards women, and a almost satanic panic-like media campaign against slasher and exploitation flicks just kind of soured everyone on the whole thing. Yet again, slashers had risen and fallen in a similar time span and manner. However, the 80s did give us a lot of solid entries in the slasher catalog. My Bloody Valentine, Prom Night, The Burning, Student Bodies, Dark Night of the Scarecrow, The Prowler, Pieces, Silent Night, Deadly Night, April Fool's Day, Stage Fright, Blood Rage, and Intruder. Checking back in with the big franchises at the tail end of the 80s, we see that they all had dipped into dreaded territory. Self-parody, which was inevitable, I guess, once you realize that the audience was catching on to just how formulaic the whole thing had become. As we approached the 90s, Halloween was forming psychic links between Michael and his niece, Freddy was paying alimony, and Jason was on a fucking boat on his way to be interviewed by Arsenio Hall. Once you're making fun of yourself, it's hard to take you seriously. This deflated the franchises that were keeping the whole genre afloat, and we are ushered into the 90s on a downward slope. At the turn of the decade, slasher films were taking 2 general approaches. One that is heavily inspired by the golden age of slasher films, resulting in movies like Dr. Giggles, Ice Cream Man with Clint Howard, and the one I grew up watching, Uncle Sam. Woo! The other approach is a more progressive one, taking inspiration from Nightmare on Elm Street, which gave us 2 new franchises to the list, featuring zany, quip-slinging supernatural villains, Child's Play and Leprechaun. Yes, I do know Child's Play is 88, but also, while we didn't get many like it, Candyman. A film that would take the foundation of slashers and use it to weave a story covering the important topics of race and social class, showing that the slasher genre is not just reserved for simple stories, and instead that it can be used as a vehicle for something much larger than itself. So I know we just did this, but before we go into our next film, let's check back in with the franchises in the mid-90s and see what's going on.
Chucky's gonna be a bro.
Yeah. I don't think I need to say anything. Moving on. If we're being honest, slashers very well should have died in the 80s. And they were pretty damn close to dying in the 90s too. And then something would happen that would have a lasting impact on the genre, as well as being the last time we saw renovations to the foundation laid by its forefathers. Scream was released in 1996, the year I was born. Yes, I am both older and younger than you probably imagined. Scream brought two main things with it. First off, it took the villain away from the now cliched loner creep with a tragic backstory.
Not your friend.
And turned them into the popular hot guy who gets the girl and plays the sports ball. And from all angles, kind of just has life made for him. This change reignited the original intended panic of anyone can be the killer, by making the killer the one guy you wouldn't normally expect. Second, and most importantly, Scream brought something very much needed: self-awareness. By this point, regular slasher watchers, and even normal horror enjoyers, were cued into the very DNA flowing through the slasher genre. It was only a matter of time until we got a movie where the characters are also intimately familiar with that DNA. This, combined with self-referential humor and subverting of expectations, makes self-awareness the official final secondary tenet of a slasher film. This is the last time that we really see any innovation to the slasher foundation that was formed by the big three, and it's very important. Moving forward in a post-Scream slasher genre, you can have a slasher film that doesn't have a meta layer of commentary with it, but every single one that stands out after this point is paired with a layer of self-awareness. Scream would not only be a smash hit at the theater, becoming the highest-grossing slasher film to date, but would also see a legendary run at video rental stores. This paved the way for what I like to call the teen heartthrob slasher explosion. Or is it implosion? After Wes Craven did it again and revived the genre, like the Friday the 13th copycats, every new slasher film was attempting to be the next Scream. In the 80s, slasher films starred up-and-coming actors that would have careers that would go on to eclipse their roles in the films. These films from the mid to late 90s would star already successful actors who were seemingly only there to draw in the teen magazine audience. They also had forced meta-inclusion in the stories. Films like I Know What You Did Last Summer, Urban Legend, Cherry Falls, and Valentine. Like my girlfriend says, you have to have more than just self-awareness. I guess I Know What You Did Last Summer had some success, just going off of the fact that it got sequels. But even by the time Urban Legend came out, audiences were already fed up again. And by 2000, we already had 3 fucking Scream movies. What is it with this genre and shooting itself in the fucking foot? Oh hey, somebody had a little bit of a success with a slasher again? Make 50 by next Tuesday. Scream even has a moment making fun of how the killers always come back. If only it had stayed that way. To be fair, the idea of a copycat slasher is very neat, and is a much better alternative to Zombie Billy Loomis. It's just... does everything need to be a fucking franchise? Why? But hey, at least we got Final Destination out of this. It's basically a slasher, but it does restructure a bit of the framework. There were also certain real-world events going on in America at the time that dissuaded the production of movies where teenagers in school settings were dying violent deaths. And then soon after that, there were other real-world events that recontextualized a lot of things for Americans. Going into the new millennium, Leprechaun is in the hood, Halloween got hydrated.
Round melon breasts.
Psst, actually not that bad of a movie. Chucky is getting hitched. Psst, actually a good movie. In 2003, however, we would see something that at the time we didn't realize truly what it foreshadowed. The release of the Platinum Dunes Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. Psst, it's actually a good film. All was quiet for a while. Freddy and Jason duked it out with a script that finally made it out of development hell. Leprechaun went back to the hood, and Chucky's got a gender-fluid kid now. Sweet. And then we get a weird House of Wax remake. Odd. It didn't do numbers or anything. Fucking Sam and Paris Hilton, whatever. Decent flick. And then we got a sequel to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake.
You really think you're something in that outfit, don't you?
Oh no. So, just because I think it's funny, I'm going to read to you the list of remakes during this period. Starting in 2006. Black Christmas, Rob Zamboni's Halloween, April Fool's Day, Prom Night, My Bloody Valentine, Friday the 13th, top 4 Jason film, Fight Me You'll Lose, Bob Undead's Halloween 2, Sorority Row of all movies, and then fucking finally, The Death Knell. 2010's Nightmare on Elm Street. Yet again, the genre shoots itself in the foot. You're starting to run out of feet to shoot, guys. This incessant bashing of itself over the head of franchises, acting like mutilating a dead horse corpse is a fucking sport. This shit is infuriating, man. It's like reviving someone on a stretcher and in response they just self-immolate. It's like you throw a life raft to someone drowning and they just keep chucking it back. It's maddening. There's only really 2 good remakes in here, and that's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre one and then Friday the 13th. Every other remake is so vapid and soulless and just misses the mark by such a wide margin. Although, there is always a silver lining. We do get one positive out of this onslaught of rehashing. Boots to reboots. One of my favorite YouTube series that, if you saw certain short films or videos I've made in the past, you might have seen the hints I left in the background of that channel as a little shout out. Alright, so I apologize. In order to have a more cohesive and admittedly fun moment to discuss the remakes, I skipped over all the non-remakes that occurred in the early 2000s and into the 2010s. Movies like Bride of Chucky, High Tension, Wolf Creek, Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, Hatchet, if that's your sort of thing, Cold Prey, Triangle, and Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. As we go into the modern era, we're almost seeing a slasher renaissance. All the people who grew up watching slashers are now writing and making their own movies and paying homage to or spinning a new twist on an old classic. Nowadays, the slasher films that stick out are the ones that adhere closely to the blueprints from Halloween, incorporate the foundation from Friday the 13th, and sprinkle a bit of that meta self-awareness from Scream. All while they build on top of it in their own unique ways. Scream 4, You're Next, Cabin in the Woods, Maniac Remake, Stage Fright Musical, It Follows, Final Girls, Hush, Terrifier, Happy Death Day, The Babysitter, You're Totally the Killer, Hellfest, Ready or Not, Freaky, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which is a slasher depending on who you think the killer is, Fear Street franchise, and X. Honestly, I think slashers are faring pretty damn well in the modern era. Much like the villains themselves, no matter what happens, this genre will just keep coming back for more. Hey, what are you doing? So I grew up with horror films. I was about 2 years old when I started watching my first few, among which were Stephen King's It, the miniseries, and Puppet Master. Both were the edited for TV versions that were recorded on our VCR. Regardless, still pretty odd choices to start me off with. Thanks, Mom. Anyways, I remember I was about 3 years old, and I would be watching Pokemon VHS tapes, and then it'd be time for Tales from the Crypt reruns to come on. And so I'd swap over and sit down to watch whatever story the Crypt Keeper felt like telling me that day. That is to say, ever since I can remember, horror movies have always been there. And right alongside them, slashers. They're sleazy, which not only makes them a great source for cheap thrills, but also makes them great popcorn flicks. They're basic, which means you always know relatively what you're in for with a slasher film, making them not only easy to recommend, but also easy to put on. And there's just so many of them, which means that in order for slashers to stick out nowadays, creators have to bring something fresh and unique to the table, leading to new twists on an old classic. And well, I think they're pretty neat. I've been Hound. Later.